Folks, I am honored. I have another esteemed guest here with us today. Just like last month, we had podcasters. Now we have Booth Junkies, another legendary audio YouTuber. One thing I learned about the YouTube space in general is I'm a musician. I kind of came into this space thinking I would just be talking to musicians. And I got a bunch of voiceover people, and that's awesome. But I always look at the lens of microphones on how it could help me with a mix, how well it could sit with compression. Voiceover is a little bit new to me. So I have a legend here in the world of voiceover, and he's helped me a lot, and I've learned a lot from him. In fact, he's one of the reasons I'm talking into the microphone that I'm talking into right now. His RE20 review was instrumental. Everyone welcome Mike Delgadio from Booth Junkies. Honored to have you on.
It's such a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me on. And RE20, that's a good mic. That's a good mic, my friend. That's a good choice. Mic. Personally, for me, when I have to go to a dynamic microphone, the RE20, I just like the way it sounds. I like the way it sounds. It for me, it's got a great big muscular sound. Like if typically if I'm going for a dynamic, I'm going for a particular sound, and maybe it's a bit, I don't know, maybe more compressed. There's something about the low end on the RE20 that I love. I love it. Like when I get up real close to that mic, I just love the way I sound on. So yeah, good choice.
Okay, so I have a bunch of questions to start off with, and if we go off on tangents, it's totally cool.
Let's do it.
Let's just start off with what everyone probably wants to know in the first place, probably what's in the title of this video. What are some of your choices for budget microphones for voiceover, and if you didn't have any budget, like budget was no limit for voiceover?
Yeah.
And then also, what kind of gear would you use to support that microphone?
Sure. So if I was getting started in voiceover, the first thing it's always very important that I say, and you'll hear this advice a lot, is the microphone is a very small portion of the overall equation.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to buy the nicest microphone you can afford, but you don't need to break the budget on a microphone until you know you need to break the budget on the microphone. So $300-400 on a microphone, that can last you literally years and years and years and years. So long as you're in a place where your environment will be friendly to that microphone. We're on different microphones because we're in different environments, right? Your environment, you've got different acoustic treatment, you've got different environmental situations compared to what I have here,
right? And
certainly what I have compared to my studio, my vocal booth. So the room, I always say that the mic should be like 20% of the budget, maybe. I've said like if I have $1,000 to spend, it's $200 on a mic and my gear, and $800 on the room. So let's assume that you've got your space in order and you've got a good working vocal studio for voiceover. If it were me buying a mic today, I would probably go Lewitt LCT 440. It's got a great high end. It's got it's a bright mic, smooth high end though. So if you needed to tame it with EQ, I've been really suitably impressed. I'm sure when we get up into the rarefied air, we're going to talk about Lewitt again. I've been very pleased with the Lewitt. If I was looking for like a forever mic, I would consider the Austrian mics. I've been really happy with the Austrian mics that have been coming out. They're a lot of them are graduates from the old AKG plant in Austria, and they make amazing mics there. So the LCT 540 Sub-Zero, I mean, a beautiful sounding mic at like $600, I think. I'm speaking into the Austrian Audio OC18 at I think $800, and this mic is magnificent. I love this microphone. They don't necessarily sound alike, but they both sound excellent. Super happy with it. The LCT, the 540, is a little bit more technologically advanced. Like it's got a system where you can speak into it, and it will automatically like gain set if it needs to pad. You tell it to listen to you for a few seconds, and you perform at the level you're going to perform, and it will pad it down if you need to. Like that's smart thinking. I really like that. That's super cool.
Yeah, dude. Austrian mics in general are. I have a review of a few Austrian mics coming up, and I made a point to see like everything coming out of that area. They put so much emphasis on microphone innovation, and I think that's super important for audio nerds because Like, for example, my guitars are the guitars I like the most are basically the first guitars that ever came out. Like the Stratocaster came out in like the 50s. So did the Les Paul. And like audio people are just so obsessed with archaic gear. And I really like how they're pushing the boundaries of what recording technology is possible.
Sure.
I think that's really necessary.
Sure. I mean, I think certainly vintage gear has its place, depending on how you define vintage. Like, you know, I was working on a review, and I've got a microphone from the 90s. Is that vintage? This is a microphone. This is an old AKG 414. It's probably from the 90s. Is that vintage, or is vintage 70s? I have a microphone over on my cabinet from the 1940s. Maybe that's vintage, but you know, they all sound different. But I do think that I do think that the folks from both Austrian Audio and Lewitt, they're pushing forward. They're making the mics that will still hold up as vintage mics 20, 30 years from now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think they're going to be the new legends.
I mean, you know, the next piece of gear, most important gear, I'd say is the interface. And you know, there's a huge range of interfaces out there. My personal allegiance has been for the past few years, from the past 10 years maybe, has been to Audient. Because they have yet to fail me. I've yet to be presented with a situation that my Audient preamps haven't served me very well. I've got the whole range of them. I've got the Evo line. I've got the ID14. I ran for many years with the ID22. My current interface is an ID44. In my rack, I don't know if it's on camera, but I've got the 880, which is, so I've got right here, I've got like 12 Audient preamplifiers right here in my rack. So I've got a whole bunch of them. And they've never failed me. I'm not paid by them. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not represented by them. But my Audient preamps have never let me down. And anytime I've ever recommended one, from their basic to their high end, it's always been well received. So if I were starting out right now, I would make a choice between either the Audient ID14 or maybe the Evo 4, which is their sort of more prosumer or consumer version. The Evo 4 is a little bit easier to use because you can have it memorize some of your settings. You can have those settings get recalled. That can be very handy. The ID14 is reliable. It's compact. It's well made. It's got plenty of gain for your condenser microphones. You might need a cloud lifter or, you know, an exciter for a dynamic. Like I think your RE20 might. Okay. You'd have to turn the gain up 100%, so you might want to have an exciter in there or an activator. But right up, if in the middle of their line, their ID22, it served me really well for 10 years between doing voiceover and making YouTube videos. It had all the right expansion. It had all the right amenities. I could create mixes in the presets in the computer and have them translate over. My ID44, I can have two different headphone mixes. I can have two different monitor mixes. It's got a ton of really good stuff. So
nice.
I'm like I said, I'm not repped by them. I don't get anything to say that I like Audient. It's just that Audient has been the brand that I've known and trust. There are many people who are like, "You're crazy, Mike. It's universal audio. It's universal audio all the way."
Yeah.
Or they'll say, "No. You got to get the focus right, the clarets, or whatever it is."
Right.
Audient's been the one that's treated me well, so I've never needed to leave. You know, if we're not getting up into the rarefied air, if you're just like, I just want to be in my vocal booth, and I want to have the knobs and buttons that I need so that I can make money with my microphone and my computer. Audient ID22 and a Lewitt 540 or an OC18.
Oh yeah.
And you're making money. You're making money for a decade. The only thing you'll have to worry about is your environment and your ability to act. Your gear will be taken care of.
Yeah, actually, I do want to move to that, actually, talking about the environment, because that's always been a big part for my channel. You know, a big thesis for my channel is, you know, work with what you got and you can still make really great decisions on low budget. So my ask is, what can people do to work on a budget and still get usable voiceover audio. Because like unlike music, you know, if you're working in a mix, you can have a decent take, and if it's going to be down in the mix, it's not priority. You know, a little bit of room reflection isn't that bad, but you're kind of naked with voiceover.
In the beginning when you said I'm a musician, I have to worry about how my stuff is going to sit in the mix.
Yeah.
The only thing I got is this. I don't have a mix to sit in. I can't hide behind anything. The environment is really important. And for me, there's a couple of different factors. One, it has to be acoustically dead. Like I don't really want anything live. I don't want it to be muffled.
Right.
You know, so a lot of people talk about like blanket force.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah.
You want to get away from that as quickly as you can.
Because it takes out high end a lot, right?
It really can. It really can. Barring anything else, being an inch off the mic in a blanket fort, that'll carry you through if you have to. But you want to get out of that because it's hard to read copy. It gets really sweaty in that situation. It can sound a little congested. So you want to get away from that. Chances are, if you live in a house or an apartment, chances are you've got everything you need to improvise a vocal booth that will last as long as the recording session, ones that you can take down.
Okay.
For a long time in the beginning of my YouTube channel, I was traveling a lot, sort of in the before times. And I would make a challenge for myself that no matter where I was, if I was in a hotel, or if I was at a friend's house, Airbnb, I'd say, I'm going to make a vocal booth out of what I have here. And I tell you what, there's not much in a hotel room, but I made a lot of good vocal booths in hotel rooms because it's just a function of soft stuff, right? Blankets, pillows. I made one where I turned the hotel mattresses up on their sides.
Yeah.
And made like a vocal booth out of just standing the mattresses up, mattress pads, quilts. Disorganize your bookshelf.
Yeah,
right?
that's a
and
big
use
thing.
it as a skyline filter behind you, right?
The irony is disorganization and chaos is actually pretty good for audio.
Yeah, a sloppy room, a really messy room can actually make for a good booth because you've broken up all the reflections. And our job is to try and get as many reflections out of the mic because no reverb is good reverb in the voiceover world. There's no good there.
I know you also have an opinion that I echo about these portable vocal booths that you put behind the mic. In your experience, they haven't been that effective, right?
They're better than nothing.
Okay.
Right? So they are better than nothing. So if you have a vocal booth to go, if you have a tri booth, if you've got a PVC with moving blankets, it's better than nothing. I think in most voiceover situations, you need more often than what they can provide. So if you're making a PVC vocal booth out of moving blankets and PVC, you probably need twice as many moving blankets as you have, right? Just one layer of moving blanket over will only knock down just the very highest frequency echo, but the bass frequencies are going to go right through it and come right
what
back.
about those like shells that go behind the mic?
My experience is those really don't do much in voiceover. So like the Chaotica eyeball or the reflection filters that just form like a crescent around the mic, I haven't found them to be nearly effective enough.
Right, because that's the uncolored part of the mic. That's the off-axis part.
Right.
So it's not. Right. I mean, it could mitigate some reflections, but
it's blocking. Those are blocking the places where, for us as voice actors, the cardioid pattern can't hear it anyway.
Exactly.
So the mic's already doing the job for that part of the mic. You need stuff in that case. You need stuff behind you so that no sound coming over your shoulder will make it into the mic. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm not a huge fan of the reflection filters or the eyeball things.
And I think I guess in terms of something that we'd have like a budget for, like building a booth, are you making it out of like rock wool or something like that?
If I'm making a permanent booth, mine's all rock wool.
Okay.
So mine is rock wool. My when I had a whisper room, that was OC 703, Owens Corning 703. And I think that works great in a whisper room because you don't need to make any modifications to the whisper room. You can dimension at least the 4 foot by 4 foot one I had. The Owens Corning panels will just friction fit and just slide into place. So you don't need to like get hooks and nails and Velcro and all this stuff. You can literally just slide it into place. The mineral wool is not quite as rigid, so it will sag. So in my booth, it's got studs, and I put the, but it's 6 inches thick. I mean, it's 6 inches thick in there of rock wool. So I bought 2 layers of rock wool.
Yeah.
Because you got to get I'm trying to knock down as much bass reflection as I can. I don't want it to sound boomy or boxy in there.
Mm-hmm.
And for guys with deep voices, you can really get boxiness.
Oh,
at,
absolutely.
250 hertz.
Yeah.
And it'll sound muddy as anything. So you really need, my experience is, you need more than you think you need if you're going to try and build something permanently.
Okay, so I'm going to move us, to all of your dismay watching, I'm going to move us away from gear, and we're going to talk about how to get into voiceover. It's something I've been interested in thinking about doing. I've been interested in doing. And, it's a really strange place to be because you don't know where to start. Mike, how did you start with voiceover? Did you start freelance, or did you find an agent? Or how long have you been in the business?
Yeah, I've been in the business for a long time, like 10 years.
Okay.
But I sort of backed into it. I lucked into it. I got lucky. I'm going to say I got lucky. So I don't know that I've got a ton.
You also have a very good voiceover voice. So,
you know what? My voice is not as saleable as many other voices.
Okay.
We can talk about what that means, though.
Sure.
My story was I had moved to a new city, and I was interested in meeting new people. So I was going to sign up for the local credit classes, non-credit classes. Like I was going to go take a course in like black and white photography and meet some like-minded people. And I like to learn. So I was like, I'm going to go learn how to take some black and white film photography. And when I went through the brochure for the college, they had a class called the Art and Business of Voiceover. And people have always said, you've got a radio voice, Mike. You should go do that. And I said, all right, I did some radio in college, but yeah, let's go see what that's about. The very first night they had us get in front of a microphone, and it was like an Audio-Technica AT2020, just like super basic.
Yeah.
But it was in a nice little booth. But they had this big Pro Tools mixing desk, and they had these great big monitors, like 8
They had an
inch.
AT2020, but they had a Pro Tools desk.
Yeah, well, because it was a university, right? So they didn't
Right.
want they needed a semi-disposable mic because people were messing them up. They were dropping them, they were mistreating them.
Yeah.
But they were learning how to use Pro Tools, so they needed like a big Pro Tools desk, real mixing board.
Yeah.
And had nice monitors. And when I heard my voice through those big monitors, all of a sudden you're the voice of God. I'm
Yeah, it's complimentary.
That's me. Yes, I want to do this. And I felt like I instantly fell in love with it.
It's kind of
Went out and bought
ironic how like I've always had people that have been like, oh, I really don't like my voice. I hate what I sound like. Well, you've heard it through an iPhone. Like, wait till you put it up to a condenser mic and then they can't stop talking to themselves. Sorry. That's a tangent.
Right. Yeah, no. And so I after it was a weekly class. So that day I went on Craigslist and I bought myself a microphone for like $15 off somebody from Craigslist. I still have it. And I made a video where it compares really well to another microphone, but it was like an AKG Perception 100 for like $15, and it's like, yeah, I didn't know anything. I just bought a cheap mic that I could get.
Yeah.
And then I bought I don't even remember what interface. I forget what my first interface was. It didn't last long because it was really junk, and I just practiced. Man, I just practiced. I think I've recorded every single day. Probably 96% of the days for the last 10 years, I've been in front of a microphone because I just love it. I just love it so much. And so by the end of the class, they had a coach come in and say, like, okay, if you want to go be a voice actor, here's what you got to do. And you still got to work out. You still got to practice. You should get into some groups and practice your craft. And I asked her if she would mentor me, if she would be my coach, and she was my coach. And we were working out in a studio. She had access to a studio, and we were working out, just practicing. And her agent came to visit her. They had some paperwork they needed to execute because it was right down the street from the agency. And he said, "Who's that?" And she's like, "Oh, that's one of the guys I'm coaching, blah, blah, blah." And he listened to us work out for a couple of minutes. He's like, do you want a contract? And so like I had an agent within like 12 weeks of being in front of the microphone for the first time, and having literally no experience. But so I don't like, the getting the agent, I really I lucked into one.
Okay.
So I don't have tons of sage advice, but I think it's a lot different now compared to what I was doing. YouTube wasn't what it was. There was no Instagram, there was no Vine, there was no TikTok, there was no anything. Video and content creation is so much different now than it was in 2012 or in 2007. We all have the opportunity to get in front of a microphone and prove our chops right now to an audience. And that audience will validate if you're any good at all right now. And I think that's a huge difference. It's a huge difference. Before I had to go and like scrounge around to see if I could find auditions from anywhere I could maybe find an audition and practice, and I couldn't distribute anywhere. But now, you want a voiceover? Okay, start a YouTube channel. Okay, start a TikTok and do voiceovers. Do funny voiceovers on TikTok or Instagram Reels or any of that stuff. If you're good and your content is at all interesting, people will watch it the whole way through. If people watch it the whole way through, any of those channels, they have the algorithm and they will spread it. And so you'll be able to actually prove what you can do. It's not just I'm making my demo and then I'm moving on.
Yeah, it's a living, breathing resume.
It is. And it's a proof of work. It's proof that you can do it because it's different. It's different. We all are working out of our home studios. I haven't been to a real, quote unquote, real studio. Well, now in 2.5 years. And so I don't know that that's going to change that much because so many people over the last couple of years have learned how to make home studios, and they can make these home studios sound 80 to 90% as good as any of the big studios that are out there, at least for voiceover. And so you have the chance to make something, record something yourself, and prove to the world that you can do it. And if it's at all interesting, the algorithm will amplify you for you.
Right.
If you're not getting amplified, guess what? You're not good enough, and you need to practice more, and you need to make more. You need to work out more behind the mic. The algorithms, they validate you, which is great. So, and then that will turn into, we've never met.
Yeah.
We've never met, and yet here we are. We're talking.
Suddenly it's a networking thing.
We're out there, right? And we're proving what we can do. You either like me as a voice actor, you like my voice, or you don't. But if you do like me, if something I do resonates, then it can turn into work, turns into interviews. Our message is hopefully amplifying.
Yeah, I would add to that as well, because I would say something that is, as you know, but maybe is not as apparent to you, is on top of just having good voiceover chops and good audio, I would imagine whatever you decide to make your medium or your subject, that needs to be just as dialed in. You know, like the algorithm is not just going to reward a good voice. The algorithm is going to reward somebody who is making interesting content. And that is just as big of a battle, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I think we all get caught up in perfecting audio or in music, perfecting production. But guys, if the song's not there, if the voice or like whatever you're reading is not there, production is like 30% of it. And the rest is just the medium.
Right.
And the content.
Right. For music, it's the musicianship. You got to be able to play the instrument, right? You got to have the chops. I mean, think about this from an acting perspective. In voiceover, you have to express the entirety of your acting with only your voice, which is hard. You don't get to gesticulate. You don't really get to pause for effect. You gotta keep going. So there's the acting chops that you then get to prove. So building the studio is kind of the easy part. The stuff that's really the lifelong learning is how to act. And I'm still consider myself very, very, very much a beginner. There are so many people out there that are way better actors than I am. And so many people are making really extraordinary content, whether it's on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or whatever, as just their voice. And people that can sound really, really natural, like they're just rapping with you, but they're working from a script like that. That's all a talent that you need to cultivate.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What better way to do it than to put something out there and get it validated by people who don't care whether you live or die, right? All you have to do is be interesting, and they got to make it through your video. And what's great about some of these platforms, hey, it can also turn into a little revenue. YouTube can be a side hustle.
Okay, so I want to add to that as well, because this is something that I'm really glad we're getting into this because this is all behind the scenes, and it's something that if you guys are going to get into this field or get into music as a field, content creation is incredibly powerful. Not only is it a side hustle, it's a side hustle that can turn into other careers. Like, for example, I don't mean just getting on YouTube and suddenly you have a career on YouTube, but my career on YouTube got me my actual job. Like, this is a side hustle, but because of my skill in social media, or relative skill, I got a job in social media and in the music industry. I think there is this idea that YouTube should always either be like a side hustle, or YouTube should be something you're working towards in order to get to a full-time job eventually. But whether that's in the meantime or whether it is just the final say in the matter, YouTube can result, and social media in general can result in a full-time career, just not making content. It's doing similar things for full-fledged companies or music industries or voiceover studios.
Yeah, and if nothing else, you're building a reputation, right? You're building a reputation based on your personality, which can sometimes be a little scary.
That's true. Yeah,
because you hope your personality resonates, but
more than
I'm
just
of
your
the
personality
opinion,
too. Sometimes like your likeness, your delivery, and as
Sure.
sucky as it is, sometimes your appearance.
Sure, but you can certainly do things. How many there are so many people making a lot of money on YouTube as faceless, right? You can
That's
if
true.
your content's interesting. Behind clever stock photos, Unsplash and all that stuff. If you can tell a clever story, you can still make money, and you're proving yourself as a voice actor, and you're proving yourself as a content creator, as somebody who's actually creative in whatever it is. And those can all lead to other opportunities. Whether you're quote unquote a YouTuber, like I don't really consider myself a YouTuber, even though I make a lot of YouTube content. I'm not really a YouTuber, but you've heard of me as a voice actor. Even though you may or may not have ever actually heard me voice act, I'm not waiting for the work to try to come to me. I'm trying to put it out there. And I don't really go into YouTube as my money. Hopefully I'll make some money doing this because it's hard work. But I wanted to certainly pay forward the things that I had learned from other people. I want to lend a hand to the next person who's trying to come up. I want to make it just as easy. I want to make it easier for them than it was for me, because my philosophy is the internet is a really, really big place, right? There's a billion plus people on the internet. Chances are there's going to be 10,000 people that like you. If you persevere and you really try and you work hard and you try and make your craft better, eventually there's going to be 10,000 people that like you. And 10,000 people that like you could actually turn into a way to make money. And if it can be 100,000 people or 1 million people that like you and have heard of you, that can turn into even bigger opportunities. But you can sort of validate that you're doing the right thing and you're following a good path if people like you and subscribe or watch or whatever it is. And you can parlay that into job opportunities, right? It's certainly easier to apply for a voice acting gig and say, yeah, I've got my 2-minute demo that I made 6 years ago, or I also have a YouTube channel where you can hear my studio in action. You can see my work. You can hear exactly what I sound like. And there's a whole bunch of work there. And
Absolutely.
It's current. It's the real stuff. You hear exactly what my studio sounds like. You hear exactly how I know how to do processing. And for many people, if that can turn into an exchange on social media, and that can turn into a gig. Creating and proving what you can do is so much more than creating this thing that's so highly coached and made years ago. And the internet's big. I'll help anybody who wants to do microphone reviews, because the internet's a big place, right? You and I are not competitors.
No, I don't think I think we're helping.
We're colleagues, right? And we both want to make an RE20 review tomorrow. We would collaborate on it and not consider each other competitors, because the internet's a big place. People want to hear from more than one person. Podcastage and I don't know Bandrew that well, but I consider him a colleague. Because and we talk and we're very, very friendly with each other. But he's not my competition. Even though we often get the same mic on the same day, we often get a lot of the same stuff. Internet's a big place, man.
Yeah.
It's a big place. There's room for everybody. You want to come do mic reviews? Yeah, come on. Let's do it. I'll help you. I'll help you as much as I can.
And back to the point you were talking about before, I really think that the only reason as somebody who just got out of college in the music industry, which already that's the likelihood of you getting a job is low. The only reason I got any semblance of a job is because I made a job for myself before that. The only reason I got anywhere in any sort of professional field was because I showed people that could potentially employ me that I'm driven and motivated to do something myself in the first place. So, yeah, dude, social media can be a powerful thing in a lot of positive and a lot of negative ways. But,
Sure.
I really believe in it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
even after all said, all the stuff you can go through.
There's it's a spectrum, right? I don't spend a ton of time on like social media. Like I don't tweet a ton. Like I'm not interested in just like tweeting what I had for breakfast. But I talk to people on social media. I talk to people on Twitter. I talk to people on Instagram. I certainly talk to people on YouTube. And I arrive at my own work-life balance, whatever that means for me, because this is making YouTube videos it's recreation for me, but it's also work. I got family and I got people in my life that are important to me, so I want to spend time with them. But, if you go into it and try not to get sucked into some of those rabbit holes that are counterproductive, whatever that means for you, and think it from a productive standpoint, I want to interact with the people that I enjoy interacting with. I want to use it to try and show people what I can do. Marketers say promote your brand, but that's not how I think of it. I just think of, here's what I can do. Do you like me? Do you want to hang out some more? If you take that attitude, for me, has worked really well, and it's turned into opportunities that I never would have dreamed of. Because I don't go like hard into subscribe to my newsletter, buy my thing,
Yeah.
That's not necessarily me.
Yeah, right.
And have I ended up leaving money on the table? Yeah, I've probably left money on the table, I suppose. But I get so much more out of doing what we're doing.
Yeah,
right
exactly.
Here. Just being real and hanging out and talking, and the opportunities, they can come.
Yeah, no, I think you also, by just portraying yourself as who you are as a human being online, I think you attract, quality people to join you in your community.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly, authenticity.
Right.
You can, whatever that means. Like I'm just being who I am. You go meet me on the street, you're going to get the same guy. Do we have boundaries? Yeah, there's stuff that we have boundaries, of course.
Yeah.
Of course. But I don't want to be significantly different than if you go up and say, "Hey, are you the Booth Junkie guy?" You're going to meet the same
right.
guy.
So there you have it. If you want to get a job in voiceover from two YouTubers, be a YouTuber. Create.
Yeah. Show us what you can do. Show us what you can do, and somebody will hire you.
Right.
Show us what you can do. You want to be a video editor? Maybe edit some videos. You want to be, a voice actor? Maybe do some voice acting for yourself. Okay. If you want to go, I've said this before, I'm repeating myself, but if you wanted to go perform on stage at Madison Square Garden, you want to perform guitar, you're going to need to practice. And you're going to need to perform along the way. You're just not going to get invited into Madison Square Garden to go play guitar. You're going to network. You're going to show what you can do. You're going to prove it. You're going to create, and you're going to put that out there. Whether that's busking on the street or working in a club or recording for yourself out of your bedroom and making those records and putting it out on social media, that's the way to get on stage at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Because nobody's just going to invite you up.
Okay, so to wrap up here, I'm going to give you a hard question. That it's a lot.
Okay.
If you could give one single piece of advice above anything else for somebody in voiceover, what would that be?
Persevere.
Okay.
Persevere, because anything that you do that's creative is 90, I'm not innovating here, it's 90 to 95% rejection. And so you have to persevere through that. Take rejection as you weren't right, and you probably have room to improve. So I audition all the time. I get rejected all the time. And I use my auditions as a way to say, okay, one, I wasn't right for the gig. Okay, that's fine. My voice isn't right for everybody's gig. But you can go back 48 hours after your audition and go, oh, okay, I overacted there. I underacted there. I did not understand what that line was, because now that I've got the distance, so you have to persevere. You can be critical of yourself, but don't be overly critical. Be subjectively critical with yourself with an eye towards getting 1% better.
Yeah.
If you can just get 1% better, you will get there, but it takes perseverance. Nobody is going to hire you to voice a Nike commercial tomorrow, unless you're somehow really extraordinary. We all have to persevere. We all have to persevere. And don't give up, right? You know, in the YouTube world, it was a long time before I had any subscribers, but I persevered and I just kept making content that I wanted to make for myself. And eventually I found some people who said, I like this guy. I want to hang out with him some more. And it worked to whatever extent it worked.
Yeah.
I'm not a big YouTuber. I'm not a small YouTuber, but I've got this group of people that I like to hang out with, and I just make content that I hope they like to see, and I like to watch them. Many of the people who I interact with, I'm fans of theirs, but it takes perseverance. Overnight success takes years.
Yeah, absolutely. And to add on to that,
it takes years.
I remember specifically with the YouTube thing. So for anyone not uploading videos, YouTube has this system where it shows you like how well your video you just uploaded is doing. So it'll say like 1 out of 10, or this one's doing 8 out of 10. It's doing one of the worst you've put out in the last 10 videos. I remember my third video, the first one took like 4 days to get 1 view. And then I remember I got on my third video 7 views in the first half an hour. And I was so excited. Like, that meant so much that one was outperforming by like 300%. But 300% meant 7 views. Yeah. Like, you just have to celebrate these small little wins and these small little growing up the ladder 1 degree at a time, because eventually that video ended up doing really well. And, you know, with time, things will get there. You just have to be really appreciative of incremental growth, which is, you know, hard to get enthusiastic about sometimes, but you just focus on improving every step of the way.
Yeah. It's just improvement. And that's what's great about YouTube. YouTube gives you statistics.
Yeah.
That shows you this video is not performing as well. Here's the chart of how long people watch your videos, and here's where they drop off.
Yeah.
Like, it hurts. It hurts like, what did I? But like, you know, I can see on some of my videos, like, oh, I said something confusing at that point and people punched out, or I put up something that people didn't understand and they punched out. You can see it. And like, well, nobody's giving me feedback, but everybody's giving me feedback right there. They're telling me that thing that you did, that wasn't as good as it could be. And they left.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, when you're in the store and you don't see anything you like, you leave, but you don't tell the shopkeeper what you didn't like. You know, we get feedback. We have to interpret it, but we get feedback on what people like and don't like. How incredibly valuable is that? How incredibly valuable is that?
Okay, so I think we're going to go. This is going to be a long video as it is. So, guys, everyone in the comments down below, please say thank you to Mike for taking his time. He's a busy dude, and I just really love how everyone in the audio community is so supportive of each other, and you're a great example of that. Like, I'm just getting started, and really, thank you so much for coming on.
It's such a pleasure. I really enjoyed our conversation. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys.
Cool.
I will catch you next time. I'll do an outro later. I forgot to make an outro. Guys, if you haven't already subscribed to Booth Junkies, I don't know what you're doing, because it's a very similar channel to this, done in a much more high-quality way. So go do that. Mike took the time out of his very busy schedule to come talk with us. So please, if you made it this far, please go subscribe to Mike. And with that, you can follow me on Instagram here. If you'd like to work on a project with me, you can email me at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. Here's the outro music.